TNA's pay-per-views never cease to confuse me. They have all this hype for Lockdown, which was not what it should have been by a long shot, and then they have really mediocre build-up to Sacrifice, which sure as hell seemed like a filler show, but then it turned out to be one of their better pay-per-views in a long time. I don't get it. I mean, just when I think I've got these things figured out, they throw a curveball at me. Not angry about it, I'm just wondering why they can't do this more often. Samoa Joe and Magnus versus Christopher Daniels and Kazarian for the tag team titles. It was weird that they started the show with this one. I mean, this really should have been higher on the card, even though there really wasn't that much build-up for it. But it was a strong match, a very solid tag team effort. The heels going over was surprising because, again, very little hype for this. As a result, it did feel like the champs were dethroned kind of unceremoniously, which just didn't sit right with me. I don't have a problem with the title change, I just hope they have something good for Joe and Magnus going forward. Maybe a feud with the Machine Guns. I don't know where the hell they've been for the last month. But anyway, a really good opener. It set a nice precedent for the rest of the show. No complaints. Gail Kim versus Brooke Tessmacher for the Knockouts title. This was probably the best Knockouts title match in the last few months. It was better than Gail Velvet at Lockdown. It was better than Gail Madison at Victory Road. Granted, those matches weren't exactly 4-star classics or anything, but hey, it's something. I continue to be impressed with how much Tessmacher has improved. I mean, when she first started wrestling for TNA, I thought she was awful. And in my defense, her in-ring skills were pretty shaky back then. But now, a year and a half later, I genuinely enjoy her matches. And you know what? This was arguably her best match yet. Certainly her best singles match. She even did a few things that I haven't seen her do before, like that springboard clothesline off a second turnbuckle. That was nice. And probably the best praise I can give her is that, unlike with Velvet Sky last month, I was actually able to suspend my disbelief long enough to think that Gail might be in danger of losing this match. Tessmacher pulled it off. She didn't win the title, but I think this was a breakout performance for her. And I'm actually really hoping she gets that rematch at Slammiversary, especially if the alternative is Velvet Sky getting it, and it looks like that might be the case. I mean, if it's a choice between the two of them for dethroning Gail, then please give it to Tessmacher. She's a better worker than Velvet by now, and her as the champion would be something new for the Knockout division, which it could really use at this point. TV title match. Devon versus Robbie E versus Rob Terry. Devon retains. Yes! Thank Christ. Jeff Hardy versus Ken Anderson. Anderson wins after an apparent botch by the referee, which I'm thinking may have been a work to give Hardy an out for losing. You know, I really don't have a lot to say here. This was a good match. I liked it. I just didn't care about it, because we were never given a reason to care about it. There was no story here. This whole feud, if you want to call it that, has been a complete fabrication. They just don't like each other, and they can't get along for reasons that were never really explained at all, and so they have a match. If you want us to care about a feud, you need more of a story than that. I'm not surprised the audience wasn't that into this one. This really felt like something thrown together just to get these guys on the pay-per-view. The match was good, but so what? When there were only 7 matches announced for the card, you knew they were probably going to throw a bonus match in there, as they often do. So Crimson comes out, he runs down Matt Morgan for a minute, then he issues an open challenge that, because someone in TNA hates me, is answered by Eric Young and ODB. Ha-ha! Look, I don't like Eric Young, I don't like ODB. They do nothing but irritate the fuck out of me. But I understand that they are very over with casual fans, so Crimson mercilessly destroying them might have potentially gotten him some good heel heat. Unfortunately, that's not what happened, and the booking here, instead of serving to get Crimson more over as a heel, probably just ended up confusing people. Alright, check this out. You've got the heel Crimson cut a heel promo and then wrestle as a babyface against the babyface Eric Young, who is using heel tactics by having the babyface ODB distract the heel Crimson during the match.
What the fuck?
Crimson had not done anything wrong. Then ODB gets involved, trying to distract him, which is what a heel would do, mind you. And then we're supposed to boo Crimson when he knocks her over for getting involved in his match?
Oh, what a bunch of bull.
Crimson was completely justified in doing that. ODB shouldn't have been in there in the first place. Why should I boo the heel when the babyfaces are the ones who are trying to cheat? I don't know what the hell this match was supposed to accomplish, but I'm pretty sure it failed.
This whole show is ridiculous!
At least Crimson won, but that's the only positive I could take away from this. Then we had Austin Aries versus Bully Ray. Now we're talking. This was great. Not surprising because it had the greatest man that ever lived. And props to him for continuing on after that really nasty looking bump to the outside. My God, that must have hurt like a son of a bitch. But anyway, this was a simple story with two guys who know how to tell a story playing their roles to perfection. Bully Ray is just this big, brutal asshole. Aries, the scrappy, smaller guy. Bully just keeps beating him down and beating him down and beating him down, and Aries just keeps getting up and telling him to bring it. And in lesser hands, that probably would have gotten boring. But these guys' personalities are so strong that they can sell something like that and keep it interesting. It just kept building and building, with Aries getting more and more fired up the more punishment he took. And that brainbuster spot at the end, that was fucking beautiful. Match of the night, easily. The only downside is that it looks like the feud is over now, and I want to see it continue because this storyline has been fantastic. AJ Styles versus Kurt Angle. Now, much like Hardy and Anderson, this match suffered from really having no story attached to it. And when you're dealing with two guys who have faced each other as many times as AJ and Angle have now, you need a story to keep it interesting. But there was no story. They had a TV match. It was interrupted by Daniels and Kaz, so hey, let's put them on pay-per-view. That was it. I love watching these two wrestle as much as anyone, but you need more story than this. I mean, yes, it looks like there is more to it now, but since the hype for this match was largely ignored because AJ was so focused on Daniels and Kaz, pretty much everyone knew nothing of consequence was going to happen here until they came out. And until that happened, we were just watching two guys wrestle for the sake of wrestling. The match was tremendous. I just wasn't that interested in it. And now these four guys are probably going to have a tag title match at Slammiversary, which by all rights should be spectacular, so I'm not complaining about that part, but I just wish they had come up with a more natural way to incorporate Angle into this thing, other than just awkwardly shoehorning him in there because AJ presumably needed someone to tag with. Bobby Roode versus Bob Van Dam for the world title. In a ladder match. There weren't any really crazy spots here, but there were plenty of brutal, painful spots. Spinebuster on the ladder, frog splash on the ladder. These guys didn't shy away from punishing themselves. And generally, I would call this a pretty good ladder match made better by a wonderfully cathartic finish. Whether Van Dam's botch at the end was planned or not, Bobby Roode wins the match and he did it clean. No cheating, no fluky bullshit, exactly what he needed. He won because he was just better. Beating Van Dam in his own match, finally scoring that conclusive, high-profile win over an established star that really does something for him. They didn't go out of their way to protect the other guy, and now Roode looks like a world champion. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Van Dam actually left No Job Rob in the back for once, and of course he had to throw his little mini tantrum after the match, but that just made this all the sweeter because Roode beat him straight up, and he had no one to blame but himself. So refreshing to finally see a TNA main event end like this. This pay-per-view was a very nice surprise. Granted, the way some of the matches were built up, or not built up in this case, did really hurt the show creatively, but what was happening in the ring was good to great most of the time. I don't know how a B show, a filler show with such lackluster build-up like Sacrifice, turned out to be so much better than Lockdown, which is one of TNA's biggest shows, had a ton of build-up but ended up a complete disappointment. Maybe it was the lack of a random talking segment added for no reason. Maybe it was the lack of Garrett Bischoff. I don't know how it happened exactly, but they deserve some props this time. TNA, you did good with Sacrifice. Well done. Now please try to do the same with Slammiversary. I'll see you guys later. Hey, wait a minute. Why did they end the go-home show with that Abyss cliffhanger if he wasn't even going to appear on the pay-per-view? That was a weird tease to throw out there for no reason. I mean, what kind of sense does that Okay, another pleasant surprise this week. The build-up to Slammiversary is not off to a great start since they haven't begun putting together the card yet, but on the other hand, there was a lot of really good build-up for Open Fight Night next week. In fact, most of this show is devoted to hyping up the world title match that will happen on that show. And this is the kind of stuff that I was hoping would happen when this Open Fight Night concept was announced. It gives them a specialty show with some novelty to it, kind of like Raw Roulette, that they can hype up like a big deal once a month, and hopefully it gets people excited because it's something different, which could potentially lead to a ratings hike for those Open Fight Night shows. The downside is that they may have to conform to this Open Fight Night formula so much that it hurts the build-up to their pay-per-views, but it's not like they were putting a ton of focus on that stuff anyway. So they start with Rude and Hogan. Rude wants to throw a party next week because he's about to become the longest-reigning TNA World Champion of all time, and Rude was really funny with his list of demands here, but he also seemed a little bit out of touch. Bobby, you need to get on the bandwagon, my friend, because pretzel M&Ms are the new green M&Ms. Bitch. But Hogan wants to kill Rude's buzz, so he brings out all these guys that are going to be in qualifying matches tonight for a chance to win a shot at Rude on Open Fight Night. Strong opening segment, even though Hogan was messing up his lines a lot. They really hyped up Open Fight Night as a big deal, and they continue to do this throughout the rest of the show, which is good. So there were 4 qualifying matches to determine the contenders that I assume Hogan is going to choose from next week. Hogan didn't explain that very well, so I was a little unclear on that part, but I think that's how it's going to work. So the qualifiers are Bully Ray versus Bob Van Dam, a Battle Royal match, Ken Anderson versus Jeff Hardy again, and Samoa Joe versus Kurt Angle. All the matches are enjoyable. Bully Ray Bob Van Dam was pretty decent, made even better by the fact that Bully Ray won and Van Dam lost. Bob Van Dam losing 2 matches in a row? Wow. And it's not even my birthday. The Battle Royal was probably my favorite of the qualifiers, mostly because of the Austin Aries AJ Styles face-off, and oh my god, can we please get that match booked at some point? Maybe at Destination X. That'd be awesome. It did seem like the writers were hinting at a future match between those two, and the entire internet collectively jizzed all over themselves for a minute. But then Gunner got involved and dumped Aries out of the ring, and then AJ took him out. So AJ wins, and he tries to explain the Dixie Carter situation, but Kaz and Daniels interrupt him, and they show video of AJ and Dixie going into a hotel room together, so we didn't get any answers this week. You know, the stuff with the photos last week was interesting, but this felt like they were treading water because it wasn't really hinting at anything that wasn't already hinted at earlier. It didn't bring any new information to the table, which is what this story kind of needs to keep progressing. And it's obvious where it's all going, but I just hope that by the time we get the big reveal, it won't be as simple as there being a completely innocent explanation for all this like AJ hinted. That would just be a whole lot of build-up for nothing. It's fine if AJ is not the politicking man-whore that the heels are making him out to be. In fact, I hope that's not the case. But there's gotta be more to it than that because this has gone on too long for it to be satisfying unless there's some kind of big dramatic payoff. So the stuff afterward was a little iffy depending on where this is all going, but the Battle Royal was good. However, there were 3 things I really need to call attention to. You know how TNA have been trying to make Crimson out to be this undefeated badass and are now trying to get him over as a heel, and he was actually starting to click with the audience as a heel? Well, you can kiss that goodbye because Crimson was eliminated by Eric Young and ODB in this match.
I don't know what my future holds, but I know one thing.
I have no fucking clue why ODB was even in this match to begin with. But she was there with her wife Eric Young, and they eliminated Crimson. What the fuck? TNA, if you want people to take Crimson seriously as a major heel, shit like getting pooned by these 2 clowns is not going to do that. And God help us if Crimson, someone TNA has been trying to build up for a year and a half as one of their future top guys, is actually now going to feud with the Women's Tag Team Champions. If you want to kill Crimson's chances of getting over as a credible heel, that'll do it. Fuck that shit.
You can take this microphone and shove it up your ass.
The second thing was Garrett I don't need no stinking charisma Bischoff not only being in this match, but eliminating the television champion Devon. So we're probably going to have that shit to deal with now.
Destination? Horror.
Incidentally, wasn't Devon supposed to be defending the TV title every week? Why was he in this match? And the third thing was Madison Rayne showing up and watching from the stage, because they're doing this thing where she's got the hots for some guy, and apparently he was one of the people in this match. And I swear to Christ, TNA writers, if the guy Madison Rayne has a crush on is Robbie fucking E, the authorities will never find your remains. So, yeah, I guess aside from the ending sequence with those final three guys, the match was kind of shit, wasn't it? Oh well, the ending sequence was still pretty great. The next qualifier was Anderson Hardy. Another perfectly fine match with these two. But again, I just don't care. If you want me to care, you've got to offer up some kind of reason why these guys are feuding. Give us an explanation for why they can't get along, or turn one of them heel so we can root for one guy over the other. Because right now, we don't have that. It just feels like they're trading wins back and forth for no real reason because the writers can't figure out what else to do with them.
You people are fools!
And the final qualifier was the match that main evented Lockdown 2008, Kurt Angle and Samoa Joe. And shockingly, they actually treated this like it was a big match, which I did not expect at all. I thought they'd just throw it out there randomly like they do so many other things, but they built it up with video packages. Strange that they had those already prepared, even though this was an impromptu booking decision Hogan made. They fought backstage, and it was the main event of the show. So TNA actually did a really nice job building this up. It would have meant more if Joe's character hadn't been completely butchered since his world title reign that year, but hey, damage control. The match was good, even though Joe was gassed out at the end there. Angle wins, and then Rude has that awesome stare down with him, AJ Hardy, and Bully Ray, and that was the perfect cliffhanger to end the show on. I'm legit excited for Open Fight Night now, even though if it's anything like the Tag Team Challengers last month, the way Rude's opponent gets chosen will probably be really underwhelming, if not outright stupid. But after this angle came off so well, I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt here. They had a triple threat Knockouts title match, featuring the only other Knockouts on the roster that TNA seem to give a rat's ass about these days. The match is alright. Gail Kim wins after Velvet botches her finisher on Tessmacher and Gail steals the pin from her, which was the wrong finish in my opinion.
Thank you for your irrelevant opinion.
I do agree with Gail winning, because, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this means she will now become the longest reigning Knockouts champion of all time, which is a great thing because Madison Rayne holding that record was wrong on every conceivable level. So Gail going over here was good, but Velvet Sky should have gotten pinned. Tessmacher had grounds for a rematch against Gail after Sacrifice, and now she really doesn't. But Velvet really doesn't either, so I don't know what the hell they're going to do for Slammiversary now. I mean, Gail's starting to run the well dry on fresh opponents. The only other really compelling matchup she's got left is Sarita, and I don't see that one happening, unfortunately. In the meantime, Mickey's been off TV, Tara's fallen off the face of the earth, Winter and Angelina are probably going to get released pretty soon if you ask me. The Knockout division is very stale right now, mostly because they're focusing on such a small number of them, and the rest have got absolutely nothing going on. Here's a crazy thought, TNA. If you don't want to use the other Knockouts anymore, why don't you just let them go and sign some new Knockouts that you actually do want to use? Yeah, sure, I'd be sad to see some of the current Knockouts go, but you're not doing a damn thing with them anyway. So that was it for the show itself, and generally I thought it was a pretty darn solid episode, all things considered. I have no idea what the plan is for Slammiversary, but I am excited for Open Fight Night next week, so there's that. But there are a couple news items I should go over, because people expect me to. First, the King Mo thing. TNA signed King Mo, who apparently will be doing pro wrestling and MMA at the same time. And a lot of people are probably going to cry havoc and say he's another Bobby Lashley and blah blah blah. Personally, I'm kind of ambivalent about it. It's not like he's going to be getting in the ring right away. I mean, he's got to go to OVW and get trained first, so it's going to be at least a few months. In the meantime, this will probably get TNA some publicity from the cross-promotion with Bellator, so that's good? Look, if he gets in the ring and he sucks, then so be it. But I doubt we're going to see much of the guy until then, so there's no point in bitching about it now when all he's done so far is get TNA PR in MMA circles. The guy is hardly the most offensive sports celebrity TNA has brought in. They can and have done much worse than King Mo. Second, Impact is going live this summer. I think the same week they moved to 8 p.m. And I just don't see this as being a huge deal, honestly. Maybe I'm just weird like that, but I never thought the show being live versus taped ever made that big a difference. Plus, it burned a hole in their wallet and didn't really affect the ratings in any major way when they tried it in the past. You know, frankly, they need a second weekly show way more than they need to go live. Maybe one of you guys can explain this to me, but what does the show being live really do exactly? It gets rid of the spoilers, and that's really it. Are the spoilers that big a deal? I mean, maybe it'll make the show more spontaneous and exciting because you don't know what'll happen, I guess, but it's also going to cost a lot more money. So unless they get some kind of noticeable ratings hike from this to offset the extra cost, is going live even going to be worth it to them? I don't know. To be continued on that one. And third, TNA has signed, of all people, Brooke Hogan.
What?
Brooke Hogan? Brooke Hogan? What the fuck?
What?
I know, I don't get it either.
What?
So Dixie has hired Brooke Hogan to be some kind of executive in charge of the Knockouts because her singing career crashed and burned, and the Hogan's reality show got canceled, so naturally this qualifies her for a job in the pro wrestling business.
What?
Stop that! I don't know if Brooke Hogan is going to be an on-screen character or not. That hasn't been made clear yet. I assume she is because I don't know what she could possibly have to contribute backstage. But goddammit, haven't we had enough of this? We've already got Bischoff's no-talent charisma vacuum of a son to put up with, and now we've got this too? You can't sign any new Knockouts, but you can sign Hulk Hogan's daughter? Come on!
This whole show violates everything about my journalistic integrity.
Every time the Knockouts have had their own authority figure, it's just been a fucking chore to sit through. And with so many of the women unable to even get on TV as it is introducing another unnecessary authority figure to hog all the attention in the Knockout division really the right way to go?
I was a war correspondent, and now I'm covering this.
I don't get it. I don't see what benefit this could possibly have. It really just sounds like they're creating a vanity position for Brooke to keep her dad happy. I expect we'll learn more about this in the next few weeks, but for now, I really don't want to talk about the Brooke Hogan thing anymore.
I cannot and will not demean myself by engaging this ignoramus this evening.
So I'm going to end it there. Good Impact this week. Open Fight Night was built up very well, but beyond that, who knows what they're doing. Until next time, later.